All right. According to YouTube's, I am live, but uh what I'm I guess it's Monday, right? And as a Monday, presumably it's natural that there be some problems. And problem the first is that the chat is coming up wrong. Let me see. No one's really in here yet, so I have an opportunity to see if I can fix this really quick before people jump in here. I'm back from Curacao, as you can see from the map. Let me see. Hold on. There's a share. Is there a share? I have a share button here. Let me just peek in. Oh, what's going on? Oh, all right. My own voice coming back at me. All right. Here I can see the chat, but I can't see the chat. All right. That's not going to be good. I cannot see the chat. Something went wrong. Not sure what to do with the chat not coming through. I guess I'll just have to go and see because I can't. I don't want to. I don't want to close the stream and do it, but I'm not sure. I can flip out the dashboard and see what. Because I'm doing this through YouTube's thingamajigam, their interface. I know the chat's there. I suppose I could. Let me see if I can just have the thing running in another screen, just so I can get the chat. And if there was a way to, I wonder if there is that YouTube chat window. No, not that. Chat overlay. Well, there's some things here. Not exactly, not quite what I wanted to. Restyle the YouTube pop out chat. Well, how can I pop out the chat? Where is the chat pop out? Oh, there's share screen. No. Mute myself. No. Pop out the dashboard. That's not it. It's not, and I can't even. Oh, brother. Let me see what's going. Let me see if anyone's in here. Well, I think I saw someone's in here. All right, so I'm pulling in my other thing. Okay, so no one's actually put any chat yet. Can I pop this out? Oh, okay, I can pop out the chat. If I close this window, will that close the chat? I think it did. Did it? No, it didn't. All right. All right, I've got a workaround. I've got a workaround for chat. Okay. All right, so sorry about this preamble, but of course, I'm gone for a while, and the first time back streaming, YouTube throws me a curveball. And inside here, I've got some, I think it's orange mandarin spinger for the working man, but I've got it in my, what is this, Ocean Magic rubber cup. Okay, I was in Curacao over the past week for it was a destination wedding for one of my in-laws, and we went up. Let's see, we went up on Tuesday and then came back yesterday. It's a pretty interesting place. So I've been lucky enough to have been to a couple of different islands in the Caribbean. I've been to Dominican Republic. I've been to Jamaica, but really briefly. Been to Turks and Caicos, and been to Roatan, and I've been to Cozumel. So I think that's 5. And so I guess Curacao would be the 6th. Hey, Ian. Curacao would be number 6. And I think one of the interesting things is you go to these different islands and they have their own character. I mean, maybe that's not interesting. That's I guess the variety of nature and whatnot. And Curacao here on this map, I found this map this morning. And if you notice the hex overlay, that's because I threw it on there. These are 3-mile hexes that I actually, because it's got a mileage, more or less a mileage scheme thing here, I basically just use these to create 3-mile hexes. I think I might throw some 6-milers on there too, but some 3-mile hexes, just so you can get a sense of it. It's kind of a cool, if you look at this geographically, it's kind of an interesting place. It's very rocky. It's got these hills, which I do have some pictures that we'll get to. It's kind of got some hills. It's got all these kind of funky Not a lot. These kind of funky inlets where you're kind of coming in. This is where I think I want to say, gosh, I'm not sure. Probably should have pulled up a modern map because unfortunately, one unfortunate thing with this map is it's not particularly high res. So you zoom in and everything just kind of goes to mush. Maybe this was the where we were. So we were at Willemstad, which may not be on this map. This map's from it should be though, which I think is on this part of the island. Hold on, but there's a better way. Let me see. So Curacao map. Let's just do this. Let's do this. All right. Okay. Let's get a nice big one. Ooh, that's kind of a nice big one. But maybe one without the stuff. So much stuff. Okay. Let's copy this image. Oops. And let's get it. Let's get it into. Let's get it into. Let's get it into thing here. Paste it in. Okay, this will be maybe we can have these two maps maybe next to each other. Well, yeah, I mean, Ian, you could totally. I look. Ian says flip at 90 degrees, and you have a completely different setting. But I mean, I think to be honest, who would even really know if you took, especially this older type map? I don't even know if you have to flip it. Just go with it. Anyhow, all right. So we were staying. Okay, Willemstad is here. Otrabanda, Saint Michel. Gosh, I would. So see if I can compare where that is over here. So it looks like this is the hump. So maybe Willemstad is in here somewhere, or maybe it's this. So I'll get to some of the images. So what's cool about the island itself, interesting, it's got all these hills, which you can see. And it has very, I think on another stream I had mentioned this concept in looking at hex terrain of an arid forest. And I thought, boy, isn't that interesting? Because you don't think of forest as being arid. And yet, I think ended up looking it up, or I might have just been doing this on my own. I ended up looking it up and said, yeah, there is such a thing as an arid forest. And what was interesting was, to me, looking at Curacao, that's totally the vibe I get. So you can see these kind of they definitely lots of trees in some of these areas, but they're pretty small, or not small, they're pretty short trees. And then you'll see, I don't think I have maybe over one of these will show it. Maybe it's this one. You see in here, you find, so this is more kind of scrubby, but you find these pretty tall cacti in here. And you'll see kind of the trees, some of the trees you'll see are bigger, but it's kind of an interesting mix. And it definitely feels dry. It definitely has a bit of that desert island kind of vibe to it, where you're on the ocean but on land it feels dry. It's very rocky. A lot of these the terrain has these kind of hills that are lots of either covered in this sort of vegetation, and then also this kind of bare rock. It's pretty cool, and it feels to me different than other islands. Here's Willemstad that has the kind of Dutch architecture. This is kind of the older part of the city, and it definitely is the more touristy one, where they've preserved, either these are preserved. Some of them, there are definitely, I don't know if these are. They're definitely some of the buildings that I saw that were 18th century and early 19th century structures that had this kind of style to it. But this is kind of this Dutch, I think Dutch colonial, I don't know what you would call it, Dutch style, that even for some of the newer stuff in this area, they'll kind of mimic that same design. And then coming on this inlet is a very deep water inlet, and they had container ships coming through here. And if you follow this down, there are sort of refineries around the bend. But it's kind of interesting because it's not one of these islands that has tons and tons of beaches. It has some beaches. Maybe this map will get you more. And I think it's more on the I guess landward side than the ocean side. But you have these deep, a kind of deep water port, or I guess maybe it's on this side. I'm not sure where the I'm not sure where the I didn't really get to go visit too much of the beaches. We were mostly staying in the Willemstad area. That we went snorkeling, and I think, see, unfortunately with this map, there's got to be I want to get a better one, because this one's not really, it's not giving me the detail that I desire. It's giving me a lot of, let me see if there's one that's got better information. Something with better information than this. Let's see. All right, this one might be the one. Hold on a minute. This one might be the one. Okay, so this, I think, gives a better. There we go. This is better. This is what I'm looking for. So we were right around here, and there's this. Maybe they cut this channel. I wonder if that channel wasn't originally there. That's another kind of cool thing. So maybe they did cut it, because it looks like, I'm guessing that where we are is here, and that they cut here somewhere. They cut, and obviously I know with these, or unless it's this one, it's hard to tell with these. But I wonder if they cut. I wonder if that's a man-made channel. Maybe not. I bet you that. And then in here, in any case, it's pretty cool. So we're at Willemstad, and then we took a bus ride, came out here. I think we ended up getting on a boat, and then really just tooling around here, which is not that far away, and doing some snorkeling. But the cool thing is, again, there's not a lot of beaches. I mean, there are some. It's not beach empty, but there's lots of rock. These kind of rocky. What I was looking at, kind of over here. You notice different heights. This is kind of right down the shoreline, but you can see it's still kind of rocky. Here's where there was an old. I'm guessing this is another 19th century fortification overlooking this inlet. And then, over here, it's slightly higher, here, more kind of big rocks here too. And then these kind of peaks. This one, at least on this side, has covered in the vegetation. Other ones have more of that rocky. Looking here, you can see overall the island. It's pretty neat. It was fun, and I wish, the one thing I would have wished, I wish we got a little bit more of that. We didn't get a lot of culture. I'm really interested in the what the kind of cultural stuff. Didn't get to do very much of that, because we were sort of, I don't want to say bound. We probably could have, between just relaxing and kind of family stuff. Didn't really manage to get out there, but it was a lot of fun, and the island was really interesting. And I think, and I guess the reason why I gridded this up, not just for kicks, is because I do think, whether, as Ian suggested, you flip it on an axis, or mirror it, or do something else, that I think it would make a cool little micro setting, little area, because you have potentially, let's just say that it's maybe here is where Willemstad ends up being, and maybe that is where it is here. This kind of deep water port where you can come in, that's got, you have this protected, you have this inlet that's protected by this peninsula here. You could think of that there would probably be, like there are in the town now, there are fortifications. So there was a fort here, or there is, and there's one here as well. And the hotel we were staying at was right over here. It's kind of right here. I think that's right. Yeah. And then this is a modern, this is a really tall bridge that comes over and then this one's interesting. It's a pedestrian bridge that swings open. It can, I never got to see it turn over, but they notice they have it marked here. These are all pontoons that it's resting on. And one way or another, it can open like a door, because this is deep water, and they definitely get some big ships in here. And then over on this kind of over here, cruise ships, 2 cruise ships a day would come in from parts unknown. I don't, I don't know where the cruise is coming from, but there's a whole thing with the cruise ships, which is kind of another interesting thing, not really within the scope of this channel, but I've never been on a cruise ship, and I find being on the edges of the kind of cruise ship society interesting. So when we've gone to Curacao, we just at Curacao. When we've gone to Cozumel, very similar. We'll be somewhere, we'll see these cruise ships coming in, 1 to 2 a day, 2 a day, I think most days. And people come off, and then they get sort of funneled into some kind of touristy shopping market area, and then they're maybe funneled towards 1 or 2 or 3 different excursions, and they kind of go off. And they're in Cozumel, I know that there were some of these kind of beaches that they would go to. They were that way, you can have not just the beach, but then you have the beach and you have refreshments and like a whole little kind of beach club kind of thing there, where they could go and do their thing, and then they get funneled back and hopefully get on the cruise ship before it leaves. And it's really interesting being near there. I think from a like was this something? I mean, I can imagine, I guess, on obviously a very different scale, if and just a totally different thing. But I can see how you could look at that, and sure, it might not be historically accurate, whatever, but you could think about if you were at a port city or port town, just a big port where ships from a fair distance are coming, bringing with them, merchants and either people on some kind of trip, or just people just coming to a new place, right? They're emigrating, they're getting set up. What the area might look like at the docks. In this case, with the cruise ships, they all have these kind of local sale or merchants, I guess, local. They're selling stuff to a souvenir kind of stuff. Most of it is, it's not artisanal or whatever, but it's fine. You want to get a little puka shell necklace, or you want to get an ashtray that says Cozumel or that says Curacao. You can go and get it, right? It's all that kind of stuff. But I can imagine in a fantasy game, if you were playing and, hey, we have this port city that is a big center for trade, you might have something similar. Now, the cruise ship is just bringing passengers. It's not bringing cargo. So there's no customs houses really, and there's no warehouses and things of that. But just in terms of, okay, if they are bringing people, or if people, for whatever purposes, are one of the main things, and I could see, like, oh yeah, you might have a section where these boats are coming in, and then you have different things for sale. Obviously, it would be sort of medieval fantasyized, as opposed to the kind of knickknacks and curios that we get in our time. But I thought it was pretty neat. It's pretty neat. I recommend visiting all kinds of places. It's a little bit difficult for me. I wish I would have gotten a little bit more of the actual place and less of hanging out on the resort. But that was just the trip. It is. We had things going on that we were dealing with. But you get in the water. It's beautiful water, lots of fish. I did like these old fortifications. I wish I'd had time to rent a car and maybe go drive to see if you could visit that, or is it just there and just kind of? It looks in good order. It looks in good shape. I presume because it seems to be similar to the fort in terms of the. Do I have a picture? I don't have a picture of the fort in town, but the fort in town is just bigger, but similar. It looks like similar design, so that's why I kind of eyeballed this and thought, well, it looks similar to the other one. The other one I think is 1820. Is when at least that version of that fort went up. So I'm presuming this would be about the same time, but it might not. And there was a cool anachronistic moment when we were on the boat snorkeling, and right near here, and I don't have, let me see, I do have it. Let me just go into I can show, here we go. I'll just pull this up real quick. Let's see. Some of these are doubled because I had to save them as JPEGs. Here's one of these. Is this one of the? Yeah, this is one of these kind of resort areas where people were. I think people from the cruise ships would come on over and hang out. Let's see, that's that. This I thought was a really neat rock formation. I just really thought it was pretty cool the way that I was wondering, you have these buildings built up here, and I'm looking at these sagging, the way the this I guess sagging is not the right word, but I really love the way these formations have these curves. The curving lines of these formations, I think, is really cool. I have no idea what it means geologically, in a geological sense. But I was wondering, like, are these homes gonna slide? I'm assuming that that's not the case, but I thought that was kind of cool. But just looked neat. Here's another one of these kind of rock, and I think from a setting standpoint, we're looking like, wow, okay, because Curacao is interesting. The setting, part of what I think I appreciate about it, or what appeals to me, is you can have these. Basically, it's not like, I think oftentimes we think of, hey, it's an island. We can just land our boat anywhere and we'll be good, right? And I think you can have locations like this where, yeah, there are some, but that you're going to be going along, and there might be not like the cliffs in the Princess Bride that are 1,000 feet tall, but where the access can be more limited. And if there are people on there who are organized, hey, maybe they just put up defenses in those places where you can get on, making it an interesting issue if the party is trying to say get there not noticed, or unseen, or maybe there are ones that are not hidden from the authority view, but then pirates or smugglers or somebody else has got those covered. So you're gonna have to make deals with somebody, because it's not just beaches all the way around where you just pull up your boat wherever you want and get. It's like, no, maybe you can make it that it's very rocky, and yeah, some of these rocks are lower and it'll be easier, and sometimes they're higher. I thought it was really kind of a cool landscape that maybe is different than I think we often think of islands. When usually you picture an island in your brain, at least for me, you just get that, just all sides sandy beaches kind of slowly sliding into the ocean, and definitely not the case here. It's mostly rocks, and then there are kind of small stretches where you get beach. And what I was looking for here, oh, no, oh, yeah, nope. But I do like these, and these hill formations are interesting too. You have sort of cliffs and these kind of, look at this one. I don't know, and this is kind of another one that would have been fun to investigate. Are these kind of terraces? Are they natural? Were they man-made for something? I don't know. I think there was a little antenna or something up here, so I was kind of wondering if they terrace this out, if there's a road that goes up to the top for a reason or not. But let me see. Here's another one. Where is? Yeah, beach. Oh yeah, so here is one of the stretches. So here you see it's kind of the short cliffs, and then you do get some beach. More beach. Other thing. Do I not have? Hold on, that's a video. We can skip the video. Oh yeah, here's the fort in town. So you see how it's kind of similar in this one. I don't think it'll make me zoom at this point, but it's like, I think 1820, 1828 is the date on the fort. I know I've got a picture. This is kind of a derelict hotel resort, it looked like, which is kind of interesting. Okay, there's my thing. Is that it? I don't have the boat. I don't have the thing. But there was a cool bit where right near here, basically I took this picture so I could get the fort without there were two deep sea drilling rigs getting serviced over here. And it's pretty neat to see this old thing and then these new things, and the rigs are huge and pretty cool. That was Curacao. It was fun. It gave me some ideas of things, and I just like that geography, and the geology, I guess. And yeah, I could see taking this map. So I took just to close the circle on that. So I took I found 3 mile hexes, and I just covered them in it. I didn't count how many there are, but it's not a massive number. And you can look and see here, if you just kind of took these, you can see that there's a handful of what I would call, I would think would be the more important locations, which would be at these inlets coming in. So here, here. I think at least on the modern map, I'm pretty sure there's some kind of channel into here, but I don't know if was man-made or maybe it's more recent. But here maybe definitely, here you could see where you could maybe want to put, okay, here are your sort of big settlements. Maybe there's some things in the interior, though. Again, looking at the modern pictures, all those hills, other than maybe a couple where people were putting homes, at least the ones that I saw, they were all bear, because they're too rugged and too rough for someone to bother putting things on. I think it would seem to me that what you're really wanting to be holding is, the shore areas. And the remember also, and that again, I didn't have a chance to look up what Cozumel, or I keep saying Cozumel, what Curacao, what they do. Maybe it's great olive or wine country, because I feel like it has that sort of Mediterranean dry climb, but I don't know. I'd be curious to know what they're, what do they, what kind of vegetables and fruits are, what are they doing here? Because it's not lush rainforest. When we're on Cozumel, it feels very jungle-ish in the interior. And with all the bugs and everything that is attendant with that, it feels very much like that. Whereas here at Curacao, it feels not the opposite, because it's not bare, but it definitely feels like a very different kind of interior, even though they both, are sort of forested. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. One of the other things I had to do, and I'm just going to keep it, I'm just going to use this page, is I was reading, and let me get the book for a sec, in a sec. Riveting streaming. History of the Franks, which has been a lot of fun reading. The Franks are quite the lot. I've only gotten to, so I finished basically book 2 and change. And book 2, all about Clovis. I posted a couple of these Clovisian stories and things. And man, he was clearly a character. I took some notes. So I'm just trying to pull up my notes. I was taking notes on my phone, and I realized I always go through this. I don't know if anyone's like me. I go through this phases of, I'm taking notes on my phone. I realize I hate it. And then I pick up another system, something tactile. And then for a couple of reasons, for different reasons, either I forget it or it's not quite convenient in the moment, I go back to using my phone. And to me, using the phone to take notes, I really don't like it at all. But it is convenient because I know I'm going to have my phone with me. So I'm at the pool, and I've got my book out. I'm reading my book, and yeah, I could have brought the pen and the paper, but sometimes I forget in the room. But the thing is, I never forget my phone. What I feel like I have to do, well, not I feel like what I have to do is I have to develop the discipline to make sure I have my note taking stuff, being really disciplined with it. Because really, the experience of taking notes on your phone, I don't know how you are. My experience taking notes on my phone, it's pretty brutally bad. It just, I think there's been studies that say that you're much better at retaining things you write out. And I don't think typing or whatever, finger typing or whatever we're doing, I guess we type with our fingers anyway. Screen typing versus keyboard typing, I don't think it has that same effect. It certainly doesn't for me. I don't have it. I don't get that effect out of it. So it's a bit of a bummer. And then something that, and you can do this digitally in, I've taken notes on my iPad where I've basically used the stylus to mimic a pen, and you can kind of have fun with it, and it becomes kind of an artifact. Obviously, on the iPad, it's still just digital. You could print it out, but I also think having that kind of artifact of your notes and things is kind of a neat thing. So some of the notes I took on the history of the Franks. One, I was writing down a bunch of names. I might make a generator, make a table to make some of these names, because most of the names are pretty darn awesome. I'm not going to go through. There's just a bunch. Theodorus, Therismodus, Arbagastes, Godegisel, Clovis, Childeric, Clogio, Ascilla, Richimer, Theodomer, Bassina. And I was just writing down all these names. It looks like I've probably got about 30. I might even be able to do a D66 table of pick your name at this point. They're really good, but I'm going to chop them up so that you can kind of make your own, because I think you can probably hear it. There are clear patterns in how these names are being made. So you just, cut the pieces. It really looks like, I think, probably about 3 different pieces, and you can make a three 3-column table, and you could probably generate a bunch of names that way, which I probably do for some reason. There was a really good quote. So the book is basically going from the fall of basically the Roman decline into the rise of the Merovingians. And there's just some great quotes. One of these I like because it just seems really good for camping. There's a quote about, I want to say that the Romans, and I don't know if they're true Romans, but there's also some of the different, at least one of the different kind of kingdoms. So one of the interesting things here, I guess I'll start here. Let me make a note area here. Let's get down to brass tacks. All right, so no, that's not what that wasn't it. That was what I want. I want to move you. So let me try to make some order out of nonsense. Basically, like, what is a king? Right. So we start out when you're reading the Chronicle or this history. There are lots of kings. I feel like there's kings. There's sort of lowercase k kings, and there's uppercase K kings. Maybe we call them, I don't know. Here's the thing: minor kings, maybe petty kings, and you might have major kings, high kings. So you'll get in a situation. Let me see if I can. Is there one I can find? I didn't take notes on this thing in particular, but there was. So there were a couple of things I did take notes on. One thing that I thought was really cool was they talk about how at one point. Let me see if I can find the page number. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Page 74. And this, so if anyone's looking for this, I want to find one. This one is abridged in a sense. I think they seem to be focusing this edition on the passages that are, I guess, about the Franks and are more or less related to that. Because you'll see where there are numbers. So all the sections or paragraphs are numbered. And then on some of them, there will be a bracket where they haven't put in that section, but they put a summary of what that section is. So, for example, on mine, page 78, you've got a bracketed. So there's 16 and 17 are bracketed, where it just gives really a brief summary of Sigivald, Duke of Auvergne, is miraculously punished for taking church property. And then 17, 7 successive bishops of Tours are mentioned. One of them, Leo, being a, quote, man of energy and skill in the building of wooden structures, unquote. But that's it. And I do want to get one that's got all the, I don't know if they're available. I don't know if they're even affordable, if they are available. I'd like to get one with all that stuff because I want it all. I'm interested in history, but I really want to have the whole document. So there was a couple of those. There's one of them where it was bracketed out about the coasts of someone's kingdom being ravaged by Vikings. And I thought, like, no, I want to read that. Why are you taking that out of the mix? In any case, on page 74, so this is 78. On page 74, there is mention of, let's see. Oh yeah, so there's basically this guy named Munderic, who seems to be what would we call good old Munderic? Not an interloper, basically an aspirant to the throne. And I think that at least the history is written, it's very opinionated. It clearly has a bias. It's telling the story of the rise of the Merovingians, and it's doing it in a very pro approach. So I don't know if it's making up stuff. It might be, but it's definitely shading things. And I think there are two purposes to what it's doing. It's going to shade things to show when the Merovingians decide to go do some dirt on some people, this history is going to make it clear that those people deserved getting that dirt. So they'll make claims of them doing something. And some of those, if you saw my community post the other day where I was listing some of the interesting ways where they will detail what kind of things are being done, mostly by others, it seems to be what it is. They're a propaganda piece of saying, hey, the Merovingians did this thing to them and wiped them out or did whatever. But you know what? They deserved it because either they weren't Christians or they were the Arian Christians. And I believe the Arian sect, so someone can think it's Arian, was about not they did not believe in the Trinity, the Trinity idea. So that there was a whole struggle between what we would now call, it wasn't called Catholic at the time, but kind of Catholic Christianity, which was like, yes, the Trinity. And there was some people like, the Trinity, we're not down with the Trinity. And there's a lot of, so they would make very pains to talk about, oh, no, these were either they weren't Christians at all, or they were anti-Trinity Christians, or, they did some horrible things. And that's why when Clovis decided to go and behead all the firstborn or do whatever, then it was justified. So there's a lot of that. And it's interesting, I think, to read about, hey, Krister, you just want, and I think it's pretty, I think reading it now with the distance, time, distance and everything, it's not really hidden in any way. I mean, he's really, in somebody trying to show you like, no, Clovis went here and he went here because these guys were bad. Hey, Krister, well, we're talking about history of the Franks, the Gregory, and someone asked me if I was reading the original. I'm reading a translation of the original. We're on to history of the Franks, Histoire des Francs. So yeah, a lot of it about Christians, the Merovingians being good Christian folk. So this guy Munderic shows up at one point. This is after Clovis has passed. So Clovis dies, and his kingdom is divided amongst his kids, who then of course start quarreling and trying to take you around. At one point, this guy Munderic shows up fairly early on, claiming to be of the Merovingian bloodline in some sense, but he doesn't have a people of his own. He's just kind of arrived on the scene, and he's at least proclaiming that he has this kind of royal blood or royal something. So what he does, which is the part that I made note of, which I'm trying to find here, what he does is saying is, hold on a minute, let me see where it is. Oh, that's 78. Yeah, that's 78's got some bad stuff. Okay. All right, so here we go. So I'll just start reading from it, because why not? Story time. This is, if you have the Royal Classics version of the History of the Franks, I'm on page 74, paragraph 14, which is the top of the page. Now, Munderic, who asserted that he was a kinsman of the king, was puffed up with pride and said, "What have I to do with King Theodoric? For the throne of the kingdom is as much my due as his. I shall go out and gather my people and exact an oath from them, that Theodoric may know that I am king just as much as he." And he went out and began to lead the people astray, saying, quote, "I am a chief. Follow me, and it will be well with you." A multitude of country people followed him, as one might expect from the frailty of mankind, taking the oath of fidelity and honoring him as a king. So, there's that kind of, I don't know if that's a shot or just like, the frailty of mankind. We might say, those hicks in the country or the uneducated or whatever, like, what, it's he found some hayseeds out there to follow him. Right. So, but what I thought was interesting was the idea of, you can call yourself, you can say like, I'm a king or whatever, you can make your proclamation, but you're not really a king until you get some people to give you an oath of fealty, which I thought was a cool thing that I don't know how I would want to bring that in yet, but I want to bring that in somehow, this oath of fealty aspect. Like, yeah, you may say you are whatever, but do you have that oath of has anybody sworn oaths to you? And it seems like it's a specific oath, right? This oath of fealty. It's not just of service. I'm spelling fealty wrong. Was it fealty or fidelity? I'm mixing myself up. Let's see. Fidelity. Oath, yeah. Oath of fidelity. Which is kind of I thought that was a really cool thing. Like, yeah, you can lead some folks, but you can't really call yourself a king unless you've had those folks swear you a particular oath. I wonder if and I didn't have a chance to look, but I wonder if there are surviving oaths of fidelity, and is it different? Is it a kind of a pro? Is it what the word I'm trying to look for? What's the word I'm trying to look for? It's kind of what becomes your fealty, the sort of feudal oath. Is this sort of a precursor to that kind of oath? Is it just a different one? But this idea that, like, okay, so now that he's gotten some rubes to swear oaths of fidelity to him. Now he in some way can call himself a king. It doesn't work. He gets tricked and killed. He gets bottled up. He gets bottled up in a city because he doesn't really have anywhere. So he runs, and then he gets the Theodoric or Theodoric, I don't know how you pronounce it, ends up coming after him and gets him bottled up in a city and has the city under siege. And Theodoric sends his, so this is going to kind of get into another thing. Theodoric sends one of his guys in there, and the guy tells him, like, I'm going to be able, like, you kind of let me talk to this guy. Let me go talk to his what was his name? He had a name, this man. His name was, where am I? Let's see. Aregiselus. Aregysyselus. Aregiselus. So Aregiselus, hey Jason, Aregiselus is one of Theodoric's men, guys, and he tells Theodoric, hey, I'll go. I'm gonna be able to go talk to Munderic. Let me go talk to Munderic. I'm gonna get Munderic to come out, and then when Munderic comes out, I'm gonna give us a little signal. I'm gonna go, and then we'll gag him, and that's what he does. Though Munderic, as he's getting gagged, also takes down this guy with him. But it made me think about something. Well, there's a couple of these incidents that think about something, and these kings, right? They're not doing all this dirt themselves for the most part. I mean, if you saw some of those quotes I posted from Clovis when he murders his buries axes in the brains of his two, I don't know if they're brothers. I don't think they're his brothers, but kin of some sort, maybe nephews, cousins, whatever. Sometimes they are definitely doing dirt themselves, and oftentimes these kings, these different, they send out, they send out these fixers, these guys like Aregiselus, who either it's their idea, hey, you've got this problem, because Aregiselus. So what's happened is, in this particular instance, is Theodoric has bottled up Munderic in this fortified city. Now he could go on the siege and do all that stuff, but Aregiselus' idea is, hey, look, let's save the bloodshed, let's save the destruction, and I can kind of get him out for you. Okay, right. That's one aspect. So in this case, Aregiselus sees what's going to happen and says, you know what, we don't need to do this. We can do it a different way. We can figure this out. So let's do that. Another way another what happens is, often there's some other times where the king will send out some guys. Hey, take this guy towards wherever, but when you get past a certain point, kill him. Don't, or take him to his own city, but you're not going to get him all the way, take him to the city, but don't take him to the city, right? You should not make it to that city alive. Okay, they go and they do that. Or they're smuggling people and smuggling people out, or doing this, doing that. So he's got the kings have these kind of fixer types. And some of them are named, and sometimes they're just king's men, or somebody that goes out and does. Let me see if I have any other, if I wrote down any other ones. I'm not sure that I did. No, I didn't, but there probably are. So sometimes they're given names like Aregiselus. Sometimes they're just referred to as basically kings, some dudes. This is what happened. He's led to his own city and then he's killed, or whatever. And I was thinking, if you wanted to play in a game, and I might try to do something with this because it appeals to me, and we're not that they're not necessarily dungeons in the kind of game, but the dungeons might actually just be like, medieval dungeons where a couple of rooms and a cell and a oubliette or something like that, or it's more like structures like manor houses and forts and castles and walled towns, and that kind of is your dungeon, as opposed to the fantastic underworld kind of dungeon. But I think you could have adventurers who basically are these fixers, either fixers for hire or fixers who are attached to a particular kingdom, that are going out and are tasked with all this dirty work. Because like I said, these kings are not generally going out and doing it on their own. Battles, it seems like for the most part, these kings tend to be on the scene because oftentimes whoever is defeated is then fleeing somewhere. So it's not like the kings are not putting themselves out in danger, putting themselves in harm's way, but they're not going on these kinds of quests. They're not on these errands. They are doing higher level diplomatic stuff. And I'm sure at some points it's not really mentioned in the history, but there's probably oftentimes where the king might want a little separation between themselves and whatever dirty deed is being done dirt cheap, that they might want somebody to do it for them. And I thought, like, that could be adventures. You could have a ton of adventures. I think that could be a whole campaign with, and I think as often happens, maybe the party, the players, these adventurers start off allied to one particular house or they're for hire, and their loyalties might be swayed one way or another depending on what the different heads of these houses do, depending on, obviously money, what the other houses do, and just whatever. Like, I think it could be a really fun and rewarding thing because you see in reading these stories how there are definitely these fixers who they're not just, sometimes they're just doing orders, but sometimes they're also being they're sort of counselors who also will do the work. They're like, not only is here, I think it's a good plan, but this is the plan that I will do, which I think fits in very well with kind of a player character adventurer. Like, yes, the king can send you on the mission, but you as the player in the character situation can be the one that says, I think I know how to solve this. And not only do I think I know the solution, but I will take it upon myself to do that solution. So I thought it made a really neat kind of template. There was at one point, let me see if I can find the page, where they mention a couple things that made somebody a good sidekick's not the word, but kind of a good retainer. It's on page 59. See if I can find that reference. So I thought that was kind of cool. 59 talks about, let's see. Oh, here we go. So this is a guy named Iridius. Where was Iridius? Iridius, a man famed for energy and wisdom. And then at some point, Iridius is doing something and he ends up, whatever, he ends up going. So then it says, Iridius departed and going to King Clovis, he said, Behold, I am your humble servant, most pious king. I come to your protection, leaving the wretched Gundabad, who was, again, right, talking about shifting allegiances. So he has shifted his allegiance. And if your goodness condescends to receive me, both you and your children shall have in me a true and faithful servant. Clovis received him very readily and kept him by him, for he was entertaining in storytelling, ready in counsel, just in judgment, and faithful in what was put in his charge. And I think what ends up happening is the guy convinces, Iridius enters Clovis' service, I think, to convince him. So it's like a fake loyalty swap. I think he convinces him that the other guy, Gundabad, or Gunda, what is it? Yeah, Gundabad, which sounds like a name that George Lucas made up for one of the Star Wars prequels. Or was this Tolkien? Does Tolkien have Gundabad? The orcs of Gundabad? Anyway. I think he was there to try to get clemency from Gundabad, from Clovis. But I like this idea that you have these qualities that if you want to be a king's man, you should show. You got to be entertaining storyteller, not to be downplayed. It's kind of, I think, the first thing they mention, and then also being, so being wise, just, and faithful, which are kind of cool things to look about. If you wanted to have, I was thinking of doing that maybe even as imagine if you were setting up as your attributes, you could have something, I don't know, entertaining. I don't know what it would be. You're entertaining. You're wise in counsel, though I probably wouldn't want to put that in attribute, right? What does it say? Wise. What was the other one? Where did I see? Wise, just, and faithful. Wise, just. Now, of course, there's a little bit of a why. What is wisdom in this case? Wisdom is from the point of view of your employer, Clovis, or whomever, right? It's not, and there's a lot of, again, I think part of the justifications is because they're doing things that are not exactly following Christian virtues. Gregory of Tours has to kind of come up with the justifications for them not being that. So some of those causes of death that I mentioned, things like um, tying people to trees by the sinews of their thighs, which just sound, I don't even want to picture what that would be. Is something that's used to justify why Clovis or his, I can't remember if it's Clovis at this point or one of his sons, has to make war, or wants or should, or is justified making war on the Thuringi because they were doing these horrible things, throwing maidens down wells, and having people trampled by carts so that all their bones are broken, and then feeding them to animals, and then tying people to trees by their thigh muscles. It's just, ugh. But when you write that out and say, well, this is why we have to go, and I think it's even part of a speech that supposedly Clovis somebody is giving, is like, this is why we have to go take care of these people. It's this thing, which reminds me of course, if you've seen propaganda stuff from World War I, and I think even World War II, and even other conflicts, you get that stuff, right? The Germans are tossing babies onto their spears and that something, and like, oh gosh, and that's why you got to go fight the Hun in World War I, is because they're doing these horrific things, right? And similar. So this is that their propaganda poster. This is kind of what their thing is, where they're telling the people, no, the reason why we got to go do this is not because maybe I don't like them or I want that land or whatever. No, because we exchanged hostages, and they, in good faith, and they took the hostages that we sent them, and they did these horrible things to them. Now, it's not to say that the Thuringi didn't do these things, either by the ways that we're told or otherwise. So we have no way of knowing. But it's clear that the reason why it's being told is to gin up a sense of patriotism in the audience for, you go kind of deal. Let me see. Oh, one of the other things. So I thought that, okay, this adventures as fixer kind of thing, I think is interesting. I definitely want to explore that some more in terms of these kings who need folks to do what things need to be done, who, and I like the fact that we have some idea of what makes a good fixer. Entertainment is a good one. Being wise, being just, being faithful, right? You kind of do as you're told, and you remain. I don't know if doing as you're told is even enough, right? It's that you remain in good faith a servant to your liege. You're doing things that are just, you're doing things that are wise, and hey, you're a fun guy. You're a fun guy to be around. The thing about the kings, so I started off about, well, what is a king? That oath of fidelity I thought was a cool note that I'd like to read more about. But it also, it's confusing. The landscape of, and I've been trying to find some kind of atlas of Frankish rise, and it's hard to find because it'll be clear that there's a conflict with one person, one king. Okay, we are, there are these kind of major kings, especially after Clovis has died. Let me see if I can find a map really quick. Hold on. Atlas of Merovingian rise in France. I don't know if that's. Let's see if this will work. I know there's some good ones. No, that image didn't work. Atlas of Merovingian. And I wonder what, we call them Merovingians because I think there was the Merovec, I think is the kind of the patriarch, the ultimate, but it seems pretty clear that Clovis did the heavy lifting, not Merovec. I mean, Clovis did a lot. Let me see if I can find one of these. Okay, this might be the one that I had seen before, maybe. Let's see if this works. So we got, okay, so this, so just so we're on the same page here, this is, I think the Franks technically, I believe, I want to say they start, oh, I'm not trying to move you, I want to say they start their original region somewhere up here is where they kind of start off. At the end of Clovis's reign, this is where this has been kind of cut up between his kids, right? So you got this, then you got that, Burgundy, right? Aquitaine. I think those are the main ones. What's interesting is at one point, and it might be when this, it might be when they're invading Thuringia. Well, you see something like clearly there is a king. There is a king of Thuringia, or one of these guys, there is one kind of king. Oops. Whatever. Alpha king. One king. But then you'll see something like King so-and-so fled, and then they captured King such and such. And it's like, well, and you're reading it, I'm reading it, and we're like, okay, well, if they're fighting King A, how do you get to King B? Where did King B come from? They're fighting, they're going in here, and one guy flees to another king. And I think I even saw it explained somewhere. And I don't think that people know. I think the other thing is it's maybe confusing. Maybe it is known, but that there must be, even though this is one major kingdom, that it's actually some kind of confederation of smaller, kingdoms, maybe around whatever the cities or wherever. Sometimes I think, they will talk about guys being dukes. Let's see. Do I see, like, where is one on, I don't know if they talk Duke of Bordeaux, but you definitely see where it's like, oh yeah, Soissons, or yeah, like there's like a Duke here, but then also you see things like kings. So it makes me think that you don't have, to this kind of talking about up here, you've got the big kings who are the kings of these major regions, but there also must be a number of lower kings. In the text, they're not differentiated by any kind of titles. So you run into things like King Basia, and like, where did King Basia come out? We were talking about King, Theodemund or whatever. Where did King Basia come from? But he's not from, and he's not an outsider, because they're like, oh, we were running around here and he went, and there, and I don't know, we chased him this way and now he's with this king. And you think, well, where did this king come from? And Gregory, in his infinite wisdom, does not really do much to explain it. They never explain the system beneath the king. So say, oh, the king, whatever, like Clovis is doing all this stuff. Doesn't explain how that works. I'm guessing there's some kind of, and I'm sure that there's other history books I could read that could go into it, that maybe there's some kind of quasi-feudal relationship where you have smaller kings. They're kings, but they're clearly not the chief king, but they are kings in some right. And then you have the overall king. So it's kind of interesting to read, because I think I looked up at the size of one of these. I'm pretty sure I looked up at how big these different kingdoms are. Did I look at one of these? I might have. I forget. I want to say, did I look up Austria? Now, what did I look up? Was it Aquitaine? I forget. I looked up the size of one of these, and it's quite big. It's, I think, what, 15,000 square miles, something like that. One of these. It might even have been a small. I don't think it was actually this big. I think it was a small area. It might have been. I might have been looking around this area around here. I can't remember. So, big area, but of course, a lot of it is rugged and, whatever. So, I was doing all this to try to figure out, what makes sense for how big these try to think about how big are these kind of kingdoms, petty kingdoms could be. Unfortunately, you never get You don't get a reckoning of here. They don't do one of those things like you get in the Bible or in some books where it says something like, here in so and so, and here and he went. These were his, king such and such with his sons. Well, they'll list the sons sometimes, but not. You don't get a procession of the dukes and the duchies and all the stuff. You just kind of get like, here's the king, and then suddenly he's running into other kings, and clearly there's some kind of demarcation between Clovis, who was very much a major king. Some of these other guys who were also kings, but they're not the major king that Clovis was even fighting with. They're kind of like sub kings, vice kings of something. But I would imagine they're given the name king, and they do use other titles in there, so it must mean something. But we don't really get a sense of what that is. Let me see something. I think I'm going to try something. So there's king. No. No. That didn't work. I was going to see if I could look up. I thought there was a King Basia who shows up when either Clovis or one of his kids is fighting somebody. And they runs off the King Basia, but I couldn't tell you the page, and I'm afraid I'd get it wrong. We'll see if I can. Oh, there's another great bit where Clovis's queen gets Clovis to convert to Christianity, but there's this thing where she kind of against Clovis's wishes gets her first kid baptized, and then the kid dies. And right after the baptism, and Clovis is pissed. Clovis is reportedly pissed. Like, what did you do? This is what your God does. And then and then they have another kid, and she baptizes him, and then he gets really sick, and Clovis is about to lose it again. But then finally, the kid recovers, and of course, what ends up turning Clovis's his mind was that he needed. There was a battle arose, and Clovis was hard put, and he did one of those, hey man, if you're up there, sir, and you help me out, I'll be your man. And of course he gets helped, which seems to be what speaks to them, not the kids, not this other stuff, but I can't find whereas one of these kings runs off to another king that had been unnamed. Let's see. Gundabad and go to Gissel. Alaric shows up for a while. I don't know where. Oh, that's unfortunate. But it's interesting. Oh, so one of the other things, maybe the last thing maybe before I close this thing down. There was a neat bit about church, which I thought could be a stand-in for different temples and things. And that is this concept of sanctifying a space. Let's see, page 52. So they talk about, founding, it's because that's something that you do when you're trying to show that you're a good person, and you're one with everything that's going on. So you might want to. Oops, I'm looking at mine going the wrong way. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, I totally was going the wrong way. So page 52. Okay, here we go. So on page 52, talks about. All right, page 50, 52. Yeah. All right, hold on a minute. Let's see. Where are we looking? Is it really on 52? One thing that's funny is talk about all these. The excessive wantonness of some of the kings is funny, and so because the other thing is with this campaign of propaganda is when bad things are happening to the various Merovingians or proto-Merovingians, also has to be explained away. So oftentimes the kings that are bad or come to bad ends are always, guilty of excessive wantonness and sort of that whole thing. That unfortunately, they don't go into the whys and the wherefores of what their wanton acts are, but they do. What did I do? How did I end up on the wrong page? Oh, I am on the. Oops. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's a cool thing. Okay, see. So let's see, where is it? So they talk about this triple sanctity is what I'm trying to find. Oh, here it is. So I'll just read. This is paragraph 14, page 52. In the city of Tours, after the death of Bishop Eustachius, in the 17th year of his episcopate, Perpetuus was ordained fifth bishop after the Blessed Martin. And when he saw that miracles were being worked continually at St. Martin's tomb, and that the chapel which had been built over it was a tiny one, he judged it unworthy of such miracles, and moving it away, he built there a great church which remains to the present day, situated 550 paces from the city. And then he gives some ideas of the heights and widths and stuff, which I guess I'll read to you because it might be interesting if you want to map it out in some way. It is 160 feet long and 60 wide and 45 high to the vault. It has 32 windows in the part around the altar, 20 in the nave, 41 columns in the whole building, 52 windows, 120 columns, 8 doors, 3 in the part around the altar, and 5 in the nave. The feast of the church is given sanctity by a triple virtue, that is, the dedication of the temple, the transfer of the body of the saint, and his ordination as bishop. And then they talk about the nuns of July, Nones. I don't know if it's nones or nuns of July. And also some Ides come up. But he says if you celebrate these, a feast that you're supposed to, and then some kind of burial rites, if you celebrate these faithfully, you will merit the protection of the blessed bishop, both in the present life and that to come. And then they talk a bit more. So this idea of kind of how you sanctify a space, how do you make a space sanctified? I thought it was pretty cool. So you could do something like these are all things I think you think about what makes cathedral, and it's that there's this kind of relic of a saint in there. But this, I think, is almost more practical, and that's like, hey, do these things. Each one of these sanctifies your space. And by the way, if you can get all three, or maybe there's even more, then you can have something that's triple. It's triple sanctified. It's sanctified even more than before. And those bits about having, having virtue. So having body of a saint or some kind of holy figure, some kind of ordination, having a dedication involved there are these ways you can make sanctified church. So I think these things are cool. And I think it also, not only are they neat in terms of thinking about, hey, if you have this sanctified space, whatever it is, what makes it sanctified? It's these things. And then you can think about, well, how would, let's say, an evil person or evil entity, or maybe there's one that's, you could have the flip side if you wanted to make kind of an unholy place, what makes it that way. But then if you were to say, well, we have this holy space, how might that holy space be undermined? And well, you could think about, well, you can't undedicate it, but you could probably do some kind of horrible ceremony there to kind of undo that part. You could certainly, if there's a relic of a holy person there, you can destroy, remove, do whatever there. You can see how now you have these counter moves. And then if you're thinking from, say, an adventure standpoint or just in a kind of sandboxy setting thing, if the players wanted to sanctify a space, how might they do that? And now you have these same things. Well, can you put some kind of ceremony there? Can you bring the remains of some kind of holy thing, or maybe even a relic of some kind? It doesn't have to be a body part, it might be something else. These things that they can do that on a practical level sanctify space. I thought that was really cool. And then there was a cool quote also about what people experience in this sanctified space. Quote, "The fear of God is in it, and a great brightness is seen. And in the spring, a very pleasant fragrance, as if of spices, is perceived there by the devout." So that's pretty cool. I thought that was neat. I'm not that far into the book. I'm gonna have a lot. Someone asked me, to do kind of a review. This is not that. I'll do some kind of overall review, but I will say, like, these kinds of books, I find there's lots of stuff. The clever ways that they're killing people, like tying somebody up next to an old wall and then pushing the old wall down on top of them. I don't know why not just kill the person? I don't know. It's interesting. That kind of thing I think is really interesting because I'm trying to suss out, well, why would you go through these particular things? One, because you just think it's kind of nasty, and maybe it's almost demeaning if it's somebody who is, you think about, I'm a noble person, so I have a right to be killed by the sword as opposed to being beheaded or whatever. Oh, fair enough. So maybe it's just the ultimate, sort of insult on top of injury is to go ahead and, oh yeah, we're just going to toss this old wall over you. I was thinking, well, dude, are they doing it because maybe it's like, oh look, it was an accident, but then the body underneath has been tied to the spot. So if they unearth the person, they're going to see that they weren't having to be standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were literally tied down. I suppose, I don't know how big the wall is. Maybe they could undo the, oh, the wall's fallen and killed them. Now we undo the binds and leave them. And there's no, medieval CSI or whatever. This is early medieval CSI is probably not going to figure it out. I don't know. And then the other things, tossing people into wells, putting rocks around their necks and throwing them in the sea, and these other things are just kind of brutal in a somewhat creative ways. And that thing about tying people to trees by their thigh muscles is just gives me pains just thinking about it. But there's really a lot of inspirational material. I mean, that stuff's just kind of fun, and I could see using it to throw in some color in your campaign. Oh my gosh, they killed so and so, and it's like, instead of just saying they killed so and so, think about some kind of, what kind of flavorful way could somebody, if they just wanted to be a jerk and be like, oh, I'm not just gonna take out that NPC. I'm gonna do something for reals. Like, what might that look like? And some of it might have to do with, obviously, this chronicler seems to know. So they're tossing these people down wells. You might think, well, they're doing it so they don't get caught, but clearly, old Greg of Tours sourced, sussed it out. So were they trying to be secretive, or is he just making it up? Which is the other thing. Someone disappears, and you just get rumor that this might have happened. But why did they disappear? Could be they were just tossed down a well. So maybe you need to go down that well and find them. I don't know. But I'm glad to be back. Things should be kind of backish to normal this week in terms of streams. Thanks for hanging out. That's all I got for now. Give me your questions, give me your comments wherever you can find me. Yeah, glad to be back. Had fun. Glad to be back. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye now.